Unmasking the Human, the Posthuman Turn in Contemporary Culture, organized by Department of English, Midnapore City College. We would like to ask Professor Apurva Shaha, Department of English, Siddho Kanho Birsha University, to come to the stage. Our student will felicitate him with a token of appreciation. Now, I kindly ask a guest join the audience and take the seat, enriching the gathering with their presence. Now, we will proceed to our third lecture session. This session will be chaired by Professor Niladri Ranjan Chatterjee, Head Professor, Department of English, University of Kalyani, West Bengal. He will be chairing Professor Apurva Shaha, Department of English, Siddho Kanho Birso University, West Bengal.
So, welcome to this session. I don't know if yes, it is working. Okay, so welcome to this session. It gives me great pleasure to introduce Professor Apurva Shaha. He is professor and used to be the head, Department of English, and coordinator, Center for Endangered Languages at Siddho Kanho Birsha University in Purulia. He was also, and I guess still is, the honorary professor and advisor, Center for Language and Cultural Studies at Green University of Bangladesh in Dhaka. His research areas of interest are linguistics, ELT, cultural studies, folk culture and literature, and endangered languages. He is the author of more than 30 research articles, and among his books, I would want to mention is Cultural Aspirations of Future India of Vivekananda and Tagore. And he also co-edited a book called Cybercrimes and Environmental Sustainability in India. So without further ado, I would request Professor Shah to make his presentation. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Professor Chatterjee, respected chairperson, sir, respected faculty members of this college and from other colleges and universities, scholars, and dear students. It's my pleasure and privilege to be here at this international seminar being organized by Midnapore City College. And I'm really thankful to the college authorities for giving me the chance to share my views. And also I'm especially thankful to the Department of English, to the faculty members of the Department of English for giving me the chance to be here with you. I'll be speaking on post-humanist linguistics. Now, this is an area which is recently developing, and obviously what I will be doing is I will just put forward some questions, the questions that are being raised, and some of the questions are still unanswered. So I will put forward the questions and I will show you the examples for the reasons for these questions which have come up in linguistics from the post-humanist perspective. So I'll just try to put forward the questions and give you the examples which have given rise to these questions, and maybe I'll try to arouse some sort of curiosity amongst you. And obviously this is nothing original or novel that I'm going to present here, right? Now, linguists claim that it is language that differentiates humans from non-humans. They have also pointed out many features which are unique to human communication system. And our communication system is called language. Only we have language. This is what we claim. So, and those features, I would just mention a few, like duality of patterning or structure, creativity, and cultural transmission. As I am speaking basically for the students and the scholars, so I'll just explain in 1 or 2 lines what is this duality of structure, creativity, and cultural transmission. Duality of structure means, for example, if we take the alphabets, I initially say alphabets which are actually phonemes. So if I take the alphabets, say S, P, O, and T, the phonemes being sa, pa, o, and ta. So if we arrange these phonemes or alphabets, it becomes spot. I can just make a permutation combination of these, and I can say that spot the tops of pots. So what has actually happened is these alphabets, for better understanding, they form words, and the words form sentences. In linguistic terms, it is phonemes, they create morphemes, and the morphemes create inflectional phrases. So this is the duality.
Sorry, I think you may want to use this to change the slide.
Yeah, I'll come to it later on. Okay. So alphabets, they form words, and the words form sentences. So this is the duality of structure or patterning. And then creativity. This is the most important feature of language. Creativity means we can create innumerable number of sentences, rather infinite number of sentences from finite number of alphabets or words, or from finite number of phonemes and morphemes. For in English, it's A to Z, 26 alphabets, 44 phonemes. With these, we create words or morphemes, and that is also finite, for which we have a lexicon, a dictionary, where we can get all the words of the language. But we do not have any dictionary for the sentences of a language, because we can create infinite number of sentences, and any speaker of the language will be able to understand those sentences which they have never come across before. And here Chomsky gives a very, very interesting example, which I'm sure that most of you have not come across this sentence until and unless you had classes on linguistics. So Chomsky says that last night I had dinner with a tiger on the top of a tree. Last night I had dinner with a tiger on the top of a tree. I'm sure that this is a new sentence to most of you, but we have no problem in understanding, in comprehending the sentence. Though this is not an acceptable sentence, so far semantics is concerned, but this is a grammatically correct sentence, and we have no problem in understanding the sentence because we can create infinite number of sentences and we can understand infinite number of sentences, which linguists claim, and obviously animals cannot. And then the linguists speak of cultural transmission. It is not genetically transmitted. For example, I am a Bengali speaker, but it doesn't mean that my son or daughter will automatically be able to speak in Bangla. Had he or she been put in Gujarat from his birth or from his early childhood, he or she would have learnt Gujarati. A Chinese speaker staying in Bengal will learn Bangla. So it is not genetically transmitted, whereas for the animals it's genetically transmitted. So these are a few claims regarding language which we have, or linguists have put forward. But some recent studies are trying to break down these differences between language and animal communication, that is between human and non-human communication system. Hence, a rethinking of relations between human and non-human communication is necessary. We need to rethink it. But what has critical posthumanism to do with linguistics? Now, posthumanism rejects two basic principles of human exceptionalism and human instrumentalism. Where human exceptionalism says that humans are unique creatures. It is our claim that we are unique creatures, and instrumentalism claims that we have the right to control and rule the natural world. We can rule the natural world, we can control the natural world. But on the other hand, critical posthumanism treats the humans as co-evolving, sharing ecosystems, life processes, genetic material with animals and other life forms, sharing it with animals and other life forms. So posthumanism doesn't consider anything innate to the humans, rather considers that qualities have, I quote, developed over centuries through humans' interactions with the environment, unquote. Now, recent studies have begun to show that human and non-human communications share more than that had been thought. Now, let me refer to some incidents and practices from the non-human world to illustrate that human life and language should not be studied in isolation. I have told you that I will just give you the examples which have given rise to these questions in linguistics. Some 100 kilometers away from the Sydney coast, there is a small town, Eden. And there is a whale museum at Eden. And in that museum, there is the skeleton of a killer whale, which is named Old Tom, the skeleton of the killer whale. Now, killer whales are not whales actually. They are dolphins, the largest of the dolphin family, and they are predators, very good predators. They hunt the whales. So, Old Tom was like that. And they are very intelligent. They are not only intelligent, they are also social animals who hunt in pods. And these pods are highly social, tight-knit family group of killer whales. And they always hunt in pods. Now, Twofold Bay, this is very close to Eden. And this bay was very known for whaling during the 19th century. And the coast was inhabited by an indigenous community called the Thawa community. They were the indigenous people, and they used to hunt the whales. No, I'll change it right now. This is just the background. The killer whales, they played a very important role in the life of this Thawa community. And the Thawa people, they used to request the European boat crews not to hunt or harm these orcas or the killer whales, because those things were very, very much in use. And the indigenous community, they asked the European crews not to hunt these orcas. these pot of orcas, they used to drive the whales into the twofold bay. They used to drive the whales into the twofold bay, and then the orcas used to signal to the Thua community by a particular movement of their tails. And the Thua community had a particular name for this movement. It was called flock tailing. So whenever there was that particular movement of the tails of the orcas, the Thua community understood that this is an indication that the orcas have driven the whales into the twofold bay. So we can now go and hunt the whales. So they would kill it. And folktales suggest that this old Tom even used to protect the people of the Thua community, those who had accidentally fallen into the seas from the attack of the sharks. And that is why there was a sort of mutual understanding and bond had developed between the Thua community and this group of orcas, the pod of orcas. And maybe it is for this reason that the skeleton of old Tom has been preserved after its death. The whalers, they would kill the whales, and what is the benefit of these orcas, the pod of orcas? They would feed on the lips and tongues of the whales. So this was a sort of mutual understanding between the orcas and the Thua community. So the orcas helped them to hunt the whales, and that would give them the chance to feed on the lips and the tongues, and they used to sell all those things, otherwise it was very much in demand. Now this action of the orcas compels us to rethink about the intelligence of the non-humans. It also shows their ability to act in collaboration with the humans and throws light on their ability to communicate, and at the same time it shows their power to learn, and it helps us to rethink that human life should be studied in relation to other non-humans. Twofold bay also plays a very important role, another important role towards the development of the theory of evolution of Charles Darwin. Now, Darwin had a servant who actually became his helper, and he was Sims Covington. Now, Covington had sent a huge collection of barnacles. Barnacles are a sort of streaky crustaceans that grow on the feathers and on the skin of the birds. So Covington had sent those barnacles, diverse, collected from diverse birds, diverse species of birds, and had sent those barnacles to Darwin. And this had helped a lot to Darwin in proposing his theory of evolution. Now, Darwin established that humans are also animals, and animals can think and have emotions. This is what Darwin has said long back in 1850s. Animals can think and have human emotions too. And he stated that there is, I quote, no fundamental difference between man and the higher animals in their mental faculties. No fundamental difference between man and the higher animals in their mental faculties, unquote. So this is what Darwin had stated in the 19th century. We should specially refer to two species of sea fish. One is the rock mover wrasse, and the other is the white spotted pufferfish. I will just show some small clippings of this rock mover wrasse. Play option to niche asbe. হ্যাঁ ছোট্ট হ্যাঁ ওই একটু আসুক, এই দুটো ছোট ছোট ভিডিও আছে, তাহলে ঠিক বোঝা যাবে আমি যেটা বলবো। এই নিচে একটা ওই প্লে সাইনটা আসে, এটা একটু প্লে সাইনটা আসছে না কেন দেখুন তো, এটা প্লে করবে। হ্যাঁ হ্যাঁ yes. হ্যাঁ সাউন্ড আছে, একটু দিয়ে দিন। এটাতে নেই, পরেরটাতে আছে, এটাতে সাউন্ড নেই। না আছে। What is it actually doing? It is actually, this is called rock mover rash. So it's moving the small rocks, the debris, so that the female can lay the eggs. It's small. You can get these clippings, such videos are available in the YouTube, and I have taken it from the YouTube obviously. So this is what the male is doing. It is displacing or removing the rocks and other debris from the seabed so that the female can lay eggs. And the next one is even more interesting, and it's a bit longer. এটার সাউন্ড একটু দিন তো তাহলে। হ্যাঁ আচ্ছা ঠিক আছে, না থাক, আচ্ছা ঠিক আছে, ওকে। Just look at this video. It is a video of 2 to 3 minutes. It will put the seashells on the edge, and it will decorate the whole geometric pattern. It's of sand. So this is the marvelous sand pattern, a totally geometric sand pattern that this pufferfish is making. And it's, you see, it just shifted the black, some garbage or waste material that was there, it shifted it. It will bring, just look at this, yes, it catches the seashell, it will drop it on the edge and it will decorate the edges. It has dropped it, and now it will put it over the edge of this geometric pattern. It will take it and put it on the edge. It is decorating the edges. So it is actually creating, or rather creates, unbelievable geometric patterns. And it's also decorating the edges. And what for? It is doing all these things to attract the female. Now they are now chick in chick. And the male works for hours and sometimes for days together to create this geometric pattern to attract the female. And it's hard to believe that you can get a better Valentine than this pufferfish in the whole nature. So this is what the pufferfish makes for hours together and sometimes for days to attract the female. Now, what does it actually help us to understand? Now, these activities throw light on the concept of embodied cognition. And embodied cognition is the theoretical framework in cognitive science proposing that human thought is deeply shaped by the physical, sensory, and motor experiences rather than just abstract internal brain processes. So these two clippings I have shown because these are certain examples that have raised questions towards our claim of language being the only property that we have, and we have the power to rule and control the world. So whenever we deal with non-human communications, what we do is we think it from the anthropomorphic perspective. We try to think and understand the non-human communications not in their own terms, but according to our ideas and terms. And this activity of the pufferfish, this has come to our notice only in 2014, just a few days back. Some 11 or 12 years back we have come to know of this. So there are innumerous such creatures who are working day in and day out, which will give us the clues to understand that maybe we need to rethink our notion of language. And it obviously doesn't mean that there are no difference between human and non-human communication systems. There are differences. Obviously there are differences, but the distinctions are not that absolute. It is rather a matter of degree than kind. Now let me talk about two tests which are conducted by Alan Turing and John Searle. Now, Alan Turing, he performed the test in 1950. It actually measured a machine's ability to exhibit intelligent behavior almost equivalent to or indistinguishable from human beings. And what did he do? There was a human evaluator who is engaged in a conversation, and the conversation is based on text. It's not an oral conversation. It is based on text with one human and one machine. One human evaluator, and the other side there is a human and a machine. And the conversation is a text-based conversation. And obviously the human evaluator cannot see the other two performers on the other side. So if the evaluator can identify that which reference is coming from the human and which reference is coming from the machine, then the system passes. But if the human evaluator cannot distinguish between the machine and the man, then the system fails. So the man is not being able to differentiate between the responses that have been given, one by the man and the other by the machine. So the system fails. Now this test, it was a bit modified by Searle in 1980. After 30 years he modified it, and it is called the Chinese room adaptation of the Turing test. And this Chinese room adaptation of the Turing test, it was designed to challenge the idea that a machine can possess a mind and understand language. A machine can possess a mind and understand language. It was trying to exhibit this. And how was the test conducted? A person who understands only Chinese, he knows only Chinese, is locked in a room. He doesn't know anything other than Chinese, and he is given the Chinese characters and a rule book. Now, Chinese speakers from outside the room passes questions. The Chinese speakers passes questions, and the person, he tries to answer the queries of the Chinese with the help of the rule book. With the help of the rule book, he tries to answer these questions. Now, Searle argues that the system, that is the person and the machine, they simulates understanding but doesn't possess the intelligence. So simply with the help of these rule books, we are trying to analyze this. So trying to show the relation between man, machine, and initially I have tried to show the relation between humans and non-humans. So we should try to rethink these things. Now, according to Richards, language is the instrument of all our distinctively human development, of everything in which we go beyond other animals. So this is what Richards says, that with the help of language we go beyond other animals. And Chomsky, obviously we need to come to Chomsky, the master of cognitive philosophy, cognitive language learning. He asserted that language is, I quote, a true species property. Species property means it is only our property, a true species property. So Chomsky says that humans can generate infinite number of grammatically accepted sentences, which I had referred to earlier with the sentence that I had dinner with a tiger. But this concept that language is a species property, this is a very recent origin, because language itself is of very recent origin if you take into account the history of mankind. So it's a very recent origin. But even then, how do we account for the appearance and development of language in this biological world? I refer to Darwin. So how do we account for this change? How do we account for this evolutionary leap? We need to answer these questions. And I have told you that linguists have not yet come across these questions, and that is why Chomsky says that it is a case of radical discontinuity. It is a case of radical discontinuity. That is, since only we have language, therefore this development of language cannot be explained by the gradual theory of evolution as propounded by Darwin. And he says that this is a case, this development of language, this evolutionary leap of language is a case of saltationary theory. Saltus means jump. So it just came on, because you have no answers to these, mind it. I've initially told you that linguists have not been able to answer all the questions raised by themselves. So Chomsky himself raises the question, but he has not been able to answer it, and so he says that it's a case of saltationary theory. It just developed. But such theories are not accepted as, I quote, they are by and large non-explanations. They are non-explanations because we need to explain with the help of evolutionary theory. Otherwise we have to discard the evolutionary theory. So we do not have answers to all these questions. Therefore, post-humanist linguists tries to, quote, unravel the ways in which language has been bound up with human exceptionalism. Language has been bound up with human exceptionalism, and to open up alternative ways of understanding language in relation to people, place, power, and possibility, unquote. So what I've tried to do is, I have tried to put forward the questions that have been raised by some linguists, and I have tried to give the examples which have given rise to these questions, and all said and done, I still am a believer in Chomskyan's theory, in Chomskyan's cognitive philosophy. I am still a believer in it, but these are the questions that are being raised which needs to be answered. And obviously, maybe in due course of time, we'll have students and researchers from here who might be interested to look on these areas, these so far not very explored area of linguistics from the post-humanist perspective. Thank you all. Maybe it was a bit clumsy and hazy. Still, thank you for your patience. Thank you all.
Thank you so much, Professor Shaha, for giving us not only some ways to think about language and about interspecial links, but also for teaching us a little bit about natural history. for which I, for one, am very, very grateful. Yes, the next year for Valentine's Day, I may have some ideas, thanks to the natural world. So thank you so much. I'm sure that your presentation has by now, excited minds to think up questions. So there should be a cordless mic that would be traveling through the audience in case somebody has questions. But if you're still formulating those questions, I may exercise my privilege as the chair to ask you a couple of things. And these are really questions about detail, in the sense that, would you therefore see any difference between, so I just want to know what your idea of language is. Is gesture language? So therefore, when you think about language, sorry, when you think about language, could you give us as broad a definition as possible as to what then, according to you, counts as language and what definitely does not count as language? So I would just want you to talk about it, because the images that you showed, those were more like gestures, it seemed to me. So could we just, do words, phonemes, do they have anything to do with it at all? So you could just.
Yeah, language is basically a means of communication, right? So we have claimed that our communication system is called language because only we can speak, so we call it language. But if we think of communication as a whole, obviously any sort of gesticulation is a language, because I simply say, I don't say, somebody is waiting at the door and I just say, this is language, I say. So these are all communications. And very recently, another controversy has come up, right? So for language is concerned, it was claimed until very recently that we have developed language mainly because we have developed, obviously mainly because of this opposing thumb, because we can rotate the thumb. Any of you may try at your home for the whole day to button your shirt without the thumb. It will take hours to then maybe you will fail. So this is what it has been said, that this is one of the major causes for our development, and linguists say this is one of the major causes for the development of language. But very recently another theory has come forward, and this is this four-finger pointing theory. This four-finger pointing theory, and it is our claim of the linguist, that it is the forefinger that can be pointed. No other animal on earth can point this forefinger. So maybe in due course of time, maybe after some 50 years, we'll come across this forefinger. This is another area that is going up very recently. That because of this forefinger we have developed, and language is just a part of this development. And I've said that we do not have any answer to this evolutionary leap. Even Chomsky doesn't have any answer. McCarthy is working on it, trying to find out if he can, or his colleagues, his students, or linguists across the globe, we are still trying to grapple with what is language. We are still trying to grapple what is language. And I've said that it is not genetically transmitted. It's not genetically transmitted. So we need to find an exact answer to what is language.
Or maybe we can leave the definition as inexact as possible, so that there can be greater evolution. I'm fascinated by the Chinese room experiment that you had talked about, which I wasn't aware of. Could you just give me a little bit more detail on it, in the sense that how were the questions transmitted to the person in the room? What? It's just through a text. So the texts were passed through under the door.
It's a passed on.
Right.
He has a set of rules.
Yes.
And I just give you.
It's extraordinary.
I just give you another example. Suppose this computer, it has already a preset program. Now, if we take away all the grammar from this computer, if I take away, the total grammatical portion is taken off. It's just left, it can only compute because it's a computer, it can only compute. And if I give a set of sentences, for example, Ram is a good boy, Sita is a good girl, Hari can dance, and I give the examples that Ram is a good boy, the interrogative is Ram a good boy? So I give these examples, and if it is given a set of sentences, it will be able to convert it into interrogative, right? After this, if I say, the man is coming, the man is coming, it will, because it doesn't have the grammar in it, it will say, man thy is coming. Because it will compute according to the logical pattern. So it was some sort of like that.
I'm sure questions may have started forming in the audience by now, but I'll just have one more question and then I'll pass it on to the audience. How much of a role do disabled people play in the experimentation, in the sense that I'm talking about somebody who is, deaf-mute and even blind. So what would be, the language? So have linguists thought about how the deaf-mute blind person would receive or communicate information? So disability and linguistics.
Actually, I haven't thought of this way. Maybe linguists have worked on, but I am not aware of this. So thank you, Professor Chatterjee. I will look into it. I'll find out some time to look into that. And maybe this will be this will be a new area also for me, because I have never thought of in this way. Thank you, Professor Chatterjee. Thank you so much.
So if there are questions from me to that? Yes.
So you gave the example of that sentence, I had dinner with a tiger atop a tree. That's a typical Chomskyan sentence. But Chomsky also gave the example of another sentence, which has correct grammar, but still does not make sense.
It's a typo that I said that it is a grammatical sentence, but it is not an acceptable sentence because it's not semantically viable. It's not acceptable. So
No,
I can say that I was flying in the clouds. Sure.
Yeah, the sentence that I'm actually referring to is colorless green idea sleep furiously.
Furiously, exactly.
And that is very different from the kind of sentence that you gave. We still understand what it means. But colorless green ideas sleep furiously, although we have all the words in the right place according to English grammar, still we do not understand. So my point is, humans are able to generate these sentences which are language and which are non-language as well. If you take the example of these two sentences.
Unacceptable.
Yes. And the second point is that language is not just necessarily the product of a human cognitive system. Given today's circumstances, AI particularly, language also can be birthed in the instance of a conversation between the human and the machine. So that's another way to look at. So that means, which means again, that says that language is not necessarily exclusively a human characteristic. Yes, yes, yeah. So that's what I wanted to say.
Maybe just a bit of explanation for the students, they may be aware. And nowadays we generally say, Madam knows very well, we say acceptable and unacceptable. We do not say grammatically correct and grammatically wrong. Nowadays we say that it's acceptable and unacceptable. If the native speaker uses, it's acceptable. And I just give another example of this acceptable and unacceptable sentences. It will be easier for the students to understand. If I say it's me and it's I, so a grammarian will say that it's I is the correct form. A grammarian like Greenbaum or Nesfeld, they will say it's I is the correct form. But take it from me, all the native speakers of English say it's me, and it's the acceptable form. The problem has been that we have formulated the rules from the language and the mistake was there. The formulation of the rules, that is the grammar, has come from the language and we have mistaken there. The grammar, the people say it's me, so it's acceptable. A native speaker of English says it's me. So why should I say no? It's I is the form taking into nominative and objective. All this doesn't matter. So it's me is the acceptable. So nowadays we speak in terms of acceptable and unacceptable. So a sentence must be semantically meaningful to be acceptable.
Sir, I have one query, sir. It is no doubt that AI is today making the gap between the languages of human and machines or non-humans narrower. So, is there any possibility that one day comes and the human communication system is overthrown by the AI communication systems? And how do you explain this, sir? And the related query, each excessive distribution of agency in posthumanism is good for the overall well-being of world, sir?
Yeah, please. So for the first question is concerned, whether the gap will be diminished, the way science is progressing, perhaps it will be. Perhaps it will be. And in most of the cases, we will not be able to differentiate between the responses from a human and a non-human or a machine. Will perhaps not be able to differentiate in days to come or in years to come. And if it so happens, I'm afraid that will be very bad for the society, obviously. That must be bad for the society. If a machine, if you cannot differentiate between a man and a machine, then that cannot be good for the society. That cannot be good for humankind. But perhaps we are approaching towards that. So this is what time will say. I cannot predict, but this is what may be. Yeah. Very, very tough question to be answered
Thank
at
you,
this
sir.
point of time.
Thank you, sir.
On the other hand, I feel that machine language will be too perfect. Human language will be known by its imperfect characteristics.
So then, So maybe we should.
And maybe we will be more like machines than humans.
No, because we will continue to make mistakes.
Hmm,
So
yes,
therefore,
yes.
So the human will be that which makes mistakes.
Hmm.
So that will define humanity in the space. So are there any questions from the back? No, in that case, I guess we can.
I'm sure that you permission of the chair, I'd like to, add something to that.
Yeah, please have the mic.
Right now we are having generative AI. Generative AI is actually making a kind of paradoxical turn to the human language, the way humans are implementing command to the machines. So this is the generative AI, which is making a paradoxical turn towards, again, humanism, which is actually the ultimate question that these conferences and seminars ultimately put forth. That is it a kind of paradoxical turn again to humanism, because transhumanism, anti-humanism, post-humanism ultimately has everything to do with humans. So ultimately this is a kind of paradoxical turn.
Yes, yes, indeed. Absolutely, I agree, and which is why yesterday for my presentation, sorry to be bragging, but yesterday on my presentation I said that that prefix anthropo, it probably needs to be rethought, and it needs to be replaced by andro, because if we actually look at the way in which the world, we constantly think about the world as being anthropocentric. It isn't actually, it's androcentric. It is all being done for the benefit of the men. The women really don't get much of a say. In the whole world, architecture, rooms, public toilets, everything is designed for the male body, or gender-assigned male body. So therefore, I think, what is human, and is the human coterminous with the man, that I think is a much more important feminist question that we need to grapple with, along with other identities such as the disabled and all of that, which is, thank you so much. A patriarchal animal, yes. I will continue to fly the feminist flag. So, thank you so much, Professor Shah. I think he deserves a very, very warm round of applause for a presentation that really did provoke a lot of discussion, and that is ultimately the success of the session. So thank you so much.
Gratitude, sir, for this illuminating session. Now, I would like to invite Dr. Shaumadip Chakraborty, faculty. Gratitude, sir, for this illuminating session. Now, I would like to invite Dr. Shaumadip Chakraborty, faculty, Department of English, Raja Narendra Lal Khan's Women's College, Autonomous. Our student will felicitate him. I kindly ask all the attendees who will be presenting their papers in offline mode, please stay in this hall.
Uh, this is thank you so much. I'd like to express my gratitude to the organizers, the Department of English, for organizing such happening seminar with this kind of topic, post-humanism. This is very, very important. And this is the temporal transition where we are. It's very difficult to decide whether I must address the audience with a good morning or with a good afternoon. Okay, with this flux, because the humanists all the time, I mean, keep on finding fluxes, subversions. That's perhaps our duty, the humanist duty, and we have to discard that. So with this, I'd like to straight away move to the paper presentations. And the first paper presenter, as I have been given this list, the first paper presenter in this session would be Somnath Mahato. And I'd like to call the presenter. Please come here. And please briefly introduce yourself. And first, tell the, inform audience about the title of your presentation. Oh, it's already there. So you don't need to, So as we all can see that the title of this presentation of Somnath Mahato is going to be, this is indeed Fluid Ontologies and More Than Human World, Tracing Indigenous Post-Humanism in Easternine Kires, I'm afraid whether I'm pronouncing it correctly, When the River Sleeps.
Good afternoon, everyone. And myself Somnath Mahato, and I'm working under the supervision of Dr. Apurva Saha sir at the Department of English, Sidho Kano Birsa University. And the title of my paper is Fluid Ontologies and More Than Human, Indigenous Post-Humanism in Eastern Greece, When the River Sleeps. Okay. So I will be looking at Eastern Greece novel When the River Sleeps and explore how the text portrays fluid ontologies and more than human world. Today my goal is to demonstrate how this regional text offers a robust framework for deconstructing anthropocentrism. To begin with, it is essential to understand the foundation of post-human theory. This framework represents a critical departure from the classical humanistic tradition, primarily focusing on the decentering of human and challenging the anthropocentric dogmas that artificially separates humanity from the natural world. Now, critical posthumanism actively dismantles the Cartesian dualism of the autonomous rational subject. It represents a profound paradigm shift that decenters the human from its privileged position at the apex of great chain of being, rather than viewing human as self-contained and exceptional entities. Posthumanism understands human as a dynamic hybrid and a congress of co-evolving with animals, machines, and environment. When we look at both post-humanism and indigenous humanities, the theoretical intersections are striking because both frameworks deconstruct the anthropocentric and dualistic paradigms that have historically governed Western thought. Indigenous ways of knowing are anchored in a relational ontology which postulates that knowledge is acquired through active engagement and being with and in the world. This brings us to the discussion of our primary text, that is Istharankire's When the River Sleeps. Now, Istharankiere is a Naga writer, and she through her works brings the marginalized and peripheral voices of the Northeast India in the literary discourses. The novel was published in 2014, and it follows the protagonist Vilay's journey to retrieve a magical stone from the depth of the sleeping river. Now, Vilay's physical and spiritual journey acts as a playground where mundane realities intersect with the fantastic and forcing him to transact with the non-human and spiritual worlds. In Istharankire's Naga ecology, nature is not a passive backdrop but an active and reciprocal participant. Vilay repeatedly asserts a symbiotic, almost matrilineal relationship with the landscape. Kire in the novel writes that forest is my wife. Vilay repeatedly said that forest is my wife. So forest not only provides him shelter, rather it offers him food. So a reciprocal relationship of human and forest is visible in the text. Furthermore, this relational ontology extends to the flora as seen in Jeliang tribal belief that fig tree is a brother tree because it saves a man from being killed by the spirits. Now, the novel radically redefines bodily boundaries through the motif of metamorphosis, and it collapses the Cartesian divide between human and animal. This transcorporeality is most vividly depicted in the Naga folk practice of the wet tiger. In Naga folk, there is a total collapse of human-animal divide, as the legends assert that every wet tiger began as a small animal. Kire emphasizes that the distinction between human body and the physical environment and demonstrate how the earth literally permits human flesh to heal and sustain it. In the novel, when Vilay is injured or ill, he does not rely on synthetic medicine. Rather, he depends on ethnomedicine. He depends on indigenous healing practices. Now, the non-human entities in Kire's Naga landscape are not passive resources but possesses intense subjectivity, agency, and intentionality. The titular sleeping river functions as a conscious entity that actively guards its treasures. Kani, a local fisherman in the novel, explicitly confirms this non-human subjectivity, stating that the river is a spirit and a gun is useless against the things of the spirit. To conclude, when the river sleeps operates as a profound post-humanist narrative that successfully decenters the human subject by anchoring it within the fluid ontologies of Naga indigenous epistemology. So within this framework, human identity is not autonomous but is consciously negotiated through dynamic reciprocal transactions with the more than human world. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for this wonderful presentation. Now, I think we must come to a decision of taking questions, queries, and observations after the end of the entire session. I think that would be good.
Okay.
And you know, I have some humble queries to you. Okay. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. With this note, I'd like to move on to the second presenter, who is Nabodip Mondol. I'd like to call Nabodip. Oh, no. This is, sorry. Pardon me, this is my mistake. This is Priyanka Sarkar. This is Priyanka Sarkar. Priyanka Sarkar is going to be the second paper presenter in this session. And please briefly introduce yourself, sir. And then after citing your title, just straight away move on to presenting your paper.
A very good afternoon to all of you. My name is Priyanka Sarkar. I am a research scholar, Department of English, Sidhu-Kandu Birsa University, Purulia. The title of my paper is Enunciating the Ontology of Posthumanism and Dalit Body Surveillance Politics in Contemporary Spaces. The discourses of posthumanism destabilizes the liberal humanist subject by questioning the universal, rational, and autonomous man as the measure of all being. Posthumanist thinkers like Rosie Bradotti and Donna Haraway argues that the centrism of human is not merely a self-contained essence, but it is a relational assemblage that constituted through technology, ecology, and material entanglement. However, the question of human that posthumanism critiques has historically been caste-marked in the Indian epistemological context. The Dalit body was never included within the normative category of the human. It was structurally positioned as polluting, abject, and disposable entity. Thus, Dalit ontology exposes a paradox where it not move beyond the objectivity of human, but it act as a confrontation with the violence embedded within the category of the human itself. In Dalit society, the body is materially coded through labor, manual scavenging, leather work, or sanitation, which symbolizes nothing but impurity. This subjective praxis produces what may be termed as, I quote, biosocial ontology, where the body is not prudence to any biological entity, but it is socially inscribed with hard ritual stigma. B.R. Ambedkar has recognized this analogy when he argued that caste is not only brings a division of labor, but also act as a distinction to laborers, which otherwise fixes the body into deep hereditary occupation. So the Dalit body becomes an enforced interface between waste, land, and survival as an ecological site where caste capitalism extracts ethical values while disentangling the larger picture of humanity itself. Thus, my article tries to decipher how posthumanism emphasis on assemblage and materiality enables a deep rereading of this enforced intersectionality. As indigenous epistemology highlight the Dalit body as becoming posthumanism in the sense that it is constituted through forced proximity to waste, soil, animals, and infrastructure of sanitation. Negotiating N. Catherine Hull's argument where he described the posthuman subjectivity as an informational and embodied convergence. But here Dalit embodiment reveals how monopolization of information in regard to caste identity rigidly determine corporeal destiny. Moreover, Dalit ontology challenges Euro-American posthumanism abstraction, where Dalit discourses often critique larger universal humanity. In this regard, Achal Mbabe theory of necropolitics is relevant, where the syndrome of caste society produces slow death conditions for Dalit bodies through environmental toxicity, spatial segregation, and economic precarity as well. So the Dalit body occupies what might be termed as, I quote, necro-ecological zone, where the very objectivity of environment is structured by mere abandonment. In texts like Bhimayana, the very definition of body is resignified as subjectively grounded, where anti-caste ecological narratives remain highlighted in its nature. Unlike traditional graphic biographies, Bhimayana reject the rigid panel grid of Western comics and instead employed a fluid indigenous gone visual aesthetic. This stylistic refusal from Western epistemology is not merely artistic in nature, but it navigates a post-human body politics that challenges the humanist figures embedded within caste society. The post-humanism discourses as articulated by theorists such as Rosie Bradotti and Mona Haraway destabilizes the autonomous liberal subject and emphasis upon relational-based community embodiment. However, the graphic text Bimayana reveals how Dalit body were perpetually denied access to that liberal subjecthood. Besides, this text also reveals how Ambedkar body is repeatedly marked as untouchable, which denied even basic need as water, transport or shelter. These everyday exclusions demonstrates how caste operate as a biopolitical technology that regulate the metaphysics of bodily mobility and sensory accessibility. Further, this also illustrates how posthumanism ecological relationality intersect with Dalit resistance movement, which is otherwise inseparable from environmental justice movement at large. What is interesting to note is that the intersection of caste and capitalism complicate the methodology of posthumanism discourses. The contemporary sanitation infrastructures commodifying cleanliness while relegating Dalit bodies to hazard labor. In Indian context, the Dalit body becomes an interface between urban modernity and toxic waste, which embodies what might be called as a capitalist pollution performativity. The Dalit body entanglement with machine, sewage systems, and industrial waste resembles cyborgian hybridity, but with the emancipatory narratives often dissociate itself with technological fusions at large. Besides, posthumanism largely interrogate the Enlightenment construction of man as rational, autonomous, male, and able-bodied in nature, while Dalit ontology largely exposes how this very category of the human in the Indian context has historically excluded caste-marked bodies. In Indian context, the very caste order find a structural parallel where a Brahmanical social imaginary historically situate the Dalit body outside the normative domain of humanity. Here, untouchability largely operate as an ontological technology which define who count as human and who is exclusively polluting the matter. Thus, the Dalit body becomes an active site where the dichotomy between the human and non-human boundary is violently entangled in its nature. So, posthumanism and Dalit ontology converges in exposing the instability of the human category. Dalit thought highly radicalized posthumanism by grounding it in caste materiality, and the Dalit body becomes not the end of the human, but the beginning of a new ethical horizon where the epistemology of humanity is thoroughly reclaimed, redefined, and redistributed as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much for this wonderful presentation. Again, another wonderful paper. Again, I would like to go with the norm that we have set unanimously, that we must take questions and observations at the very end of all the paper presentations. I have definitely got very important, exciting and thought-provoking ideas like that has already been put forth by Rosie Bradotti, and you know the previous paper has also dealt with Bradotti's human non-human relationality.
Corporeal fluidity.
Yes, necropolitics and all these things. You have mentioned about Dalit subjectivity way back, and also Ambedkar's idea about Dalithood, authenticity of Dalit subjectivity. Dates back, I think Marx had mentioned about the idea of species being. That has everything to do with this kind of necropolitics.
Species being is a part of the Darwin on the origin of species that
Yes.
has been taken from the evolution of human mankind.
But
that
that has
totally
everything. But that has
negotiate-
everything to do with society and economy.
Economy, exactly.
That has
exactly.
everything to do with society and economy, and
That was part of my guess.
so in a way it could make a very intriguing connection between Marxian theory and whatever very interestingly you have presented, the ideas that you have put forth. Thank you so much for this enlightening presentation. And with this, I'd like to move on to the next paper presenter, Nobodip Mondol. I'd like to invite the third paper presenter, Nobodip Mondol. This kind of advancement is, of course, a kind of help on the part of the chair, because nowadays the role of the chair is actually I mean a chair is as good as a keeper of time and nothing else. So fine, thank you. Thank you for this advancement. Thank you. Please go ahead.
Good morning, everyone. I am Navaddip Mondal, a doctorate research scholar at Midnapore City College under the supervision of Dr. Rajkumar Vera, an assistant professor of Midnapore City College. Now, to begin, let's look. And today I am going to present my paper entitled with Cutting Ethical and Environmental Scars, a post-humanist study of David Gregg's Outlying Islands. To begin, let's look at our architect, the contemporary quartz writer David Gregg. Gregg's 2002 play Outlying Island served as a what we may call narrative laboratory. Here we meticulously explores the erosion of human sovereignty or superiority when individuals are placed in a remote, oceanic, technologically threatened environment. Historically, we have seen those things or experiences through the lens of traditional trauma. But in this post-humanist era, we are just looking at those experiences through post-humanist perspectives. Like when we synthesize trauma through post-humanism, the wound is no longer a pathology to be cured. Instead, it becomes an ethical opening. The post-humanist card presents movement toward becoming with the other. In Gregg's play, trauma acts as a catalyst that transforms the human from a detached observer into a porous, effective entity. Now, go to the theoretical framework section. To ground this, our framework balances two models. One is theoretical traditional model, and second one is the post-humanist critique. Traditional model, which highlights the stimulus shield and concept of nectarability or the crisis of representation for the unclaimed experience. And whenever we are talking about post-humanist critique, on the other hand, from scholars like Bertoldi and Donna Haraway, we focus on the 5 blows of narcissism. And what are the 5 blows? First one is biological blow, defined by Darwin. He gave us the concept that we are the evolved form of animal. Second one is psychological blow, that is defined by Sigmund Freud, and we have discussed that we have the option that Sigmund Freud had concept that the ego is not the master of its own house. Our mind is controlled by the unconscious. And the third one is linguistic blow. When Derrida-like figures has established the idea that we are the actual product of language. Language is not the product of ourselves. And the last one we may call the digital blow, where we are living with the digital environment and the non-human with the non-human entities. And the aim of my paper is to analyze how Gregg uses the isolation of the outlying island to coat historical and environmental trauma with a new post-humanist ethics. And to complete this aim, or to achieve this aim, I have some objectives to fulfill to identify how trauma, how human shield one superiority over any other things or non-humans, the human shield erodes the characters Robert and John. Robert and John are two characters in the play, and to examine biopower, especially the use of anthrax. Anthrax is a bacteria developed by John and Robert for oil warfare or biological warfare, and finally to synthesize a new definition of working through, the definition of working through established by Sigmund Freud, that we can come to the wholeness after going to the trauma, means the recovery process. But post-humanist era is showing us that we have to live with that identity, or we have to accept the hybridity. We can't go back to the previous era or previous self. And the overview of the plot, the play is set in 1939 on a remote North Atlantic, precisely on the brink of World War II. Two naturalists or anthropologists, Robert and John, arrives on a mission of scientific detachment to survey bird populations. However, the rapture or the raptured identity occurs when they discover the ministry's true intent to bomb the island with anthrax for biological warfare. This discovery initiates a transformation where the island ceases to be a mere backdrop and becomes an active force that strips the characters of their mainland identities. We see the shattering of the rational ego and during the paraffin explosion. This is both literal and metaphorical trauma. Remarkably, the character Robert displaying the post-humanist insight instead of psychological acting out. He analyzes the shock as purely biological response. His nervous system, bypassing his rational brain. This signifies the first coating of ethical scar, the realization that a human is at their core a biological informational organism and when we look at Ellen and the animal continuation, Ellen suffers from eczema. Actually, it is a condition, skin disease that marks her hands to look and feel like claws. This ethical wound physically mirrors the environmental degradation of the island. Crucially, Ellen does not seek to cure this is traditional sin. Instead, she practices positive vulnerability, using her scars as a point of contact with the bird and the island's material reality. This represents a transition from human exceptionalism to a state of becoming animal. Here, becoming animal means being far away from the human. Okay. The introduction of anthrax represents biopower. The state takes absolute control over death and life. Robert and John's experiences solastalgia, the profound distress of witnessing their sanctuary being as a laboratory for death. This suggests a geotrauma, a permanent scar on human history. We realize we cannot heal the island. We can only coat it with new ethics of environmentality. This idea leads us beyond empathetic unsettlement. We move from simply witnessing a victim to recognizing the trace of inhuman within ourselves. This is a framework reliances in is not found in individual recovery but in alliance. Working through trauma in a post-humanist context means accepting the end of man as a sovereign entity, not the full erosion of the man. We are just reconstructing the idea of man in this era and beginning a relational existence with Earth's other species. Okay, in conclusion, we may say David Gregg's Outlying Island dramatizes the necessary collapse of the humanist perspective or protective shield. And these ethical and environmental scars are not meant to be covered up. Instead, they are the foundation of post-Anthropocene empathy. To survive the Anthropocene, we must embrace our own porousness and transform our trauma into a radical shared agency with the non-human world. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Thank you again for making some very important issues, for raising some very important issues. I'm a bit intrigued about your interpretation of the idea of becoming animal. This is going far away from human. Is it that much simple, the idea of becoming animal? That I would like to ask you at the very end of the session. Okay. Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you. With this note, I'd like to move on. As I've already mentioned that this is the role of a chair is to keep time and to keep pace with time. So Ruqayya Arif is going to be the next presenter. Please welcome, and just introduce yourself. And please go straight away to presenting your paper. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Ruqayya Arif, and I am a research scholar at Midnapore City College, and I am doing my research under the supervision of Dr. Orpita Raj. So the title of my paper is Voicing the Land in Select Santali Folk Narratives, a Post-Human Perspective. The Santals are one of the largest Adivashi communities in India, primarily inhabiting the regions of Jharkhand, West Bengal, Bihar, Odisha, and parts of Assam. They have their own linguistic identity. The Santals have a rich corpus of oral traditions. Their folklore are mostly anecdotes relating to Santali life, reflecting their worldview and channel of expression. From the ancient times, the Santals maintained a close and dynamic relationship with the land and forests. Their socio-cultural life, ritual practices, agricultural systems are deeply embedded in the ecological rhythms of the terrain they inhabit. They are essentially a forest-dwelling tribe. Paul Olaf Boarding writes in his book, the Santals are among the very best clearer of jungles in India, themselves originally a forest people. It is in their blood to seek fresh fields, as they often are hard to say, they have a wish to see land. For the Santals, land is not merely a geographical space or economic resource subjected to exploitation. It is a sacred, ancestral and relational entity that sustains both material life and spiritual continuity. I have looked at their folk narratives through the lens of environmental post-humanism. Environmental post-humanism has emerged as a critical framework that challenges anthropocentrism and reimagines subjectivity as relationally embedded and materially entangled with non-human life. So I have used Aldo Leopold's theory of land ethic. Aldo Leopold's formulation of the land ethic in his Sand County Almanac provides a foundational ecological philosophy that enlarges the boundaries of the community to include soils, waters, plants, and animals, or collectively the land. However, Leopold's work was based on humanism. Leopold expands the boundaries of humanism. He formulated the idea of a biotic community in which man occupies a central place because he was the only living being capable of moral judgment. According to Leopold, man should use resources from the land for his survival, but he should do it in a morally responsible way. So Leopold was not necessarily a post-humanist. He was a humanist, and he extended the boundaries of humanism. He writes, a land ethic, of course, cannot prevent the alteration, management, and use of these resources, but it does affirm their right to continued existence, and at least in spots, their continued existence in a natural state. In short, a land ethic changes the role of Homo sapiens from conqueror of the land community to plain member and citizens of it. So I have used the origin story of the Santals. Leopold's land ethic resonates. তারপরে আচ্ছা এরকম করবে আচ্ছা চুল না এই পরেরটা হ্যাঁ এটা that the land is not an inert and passive resource to the Santals is evident in their creation story. According to the creation story, at first there was only vast undifferentiated water. Thakurjiu, the supreme deity of the Santals, then decided to bring life and created two birds. It is to be noted here that at first he didn't create human beings, he created two birds. However, there was no solid ground for nurturing life. Thakur then employed various beings to retrieve soil from under the cosmic waters. It was not an easy task, and at last the tortoise succeeded in bringing up earth from under the water, and after that land came into being. The animal's role in bringing up soil foreground multi-species participation in creation, exemplifying what Bruno Latour conceptualizes as act-on-network theory, where humans and non-human entities, actants like technology, nature, or ideas, hold equal potential to shape social networks. As one of the critique, Fayez Tagani writes in Latour's theory, insofar as an act-on network theory diminishes the importance of subjectivity, intentionality, consciousness, reason, and all of the other weapons with which humans have maintained their distance from and superiority over the non-human world, it also erodes the foundation for tackling questions of responsibility. It is difficult to see how a robust consideration of our obligations to animals or humans is served by such a strategy. The first human ancestors, according to the Santal mythology, Pilchu Haram and Pilchu Budi, are born from the eggs of the Hasil bird, and they came into existence only after the formation of the stable land. Their existence is contingent upon earth. Humanity does not precede it. It depends on it. This ordering of the universe reverses anthropocentric cosmologies that privilege human centrality. Then to understand the land ethic, then how they worship land, I have used the sacred grove concept of the sacred grove. Among the Santals, the sacred grove, that is Jaher Than, is not merely a patch of forest or land. It is the moral center and identity marker of the village. Located typically at the edge of the village, the grove consists of 5 trees, 4 shal trees and 1 mahua tree. It is part of the primeval forest. It is the dwelling place of the lady of the sacred grove, Jaherera, and other spirits and bongas. This patch of land in every Santali village acts as a meeting ground of human and the supernatural world. The Jaher Than is protected through customary beliefs. Cutting trees, hunting, or disturbing the grove without ritual sanction is considered sacrilegious. The grove is treated as a sentient and sacred presence that maintains balance in Santal life. In the spirit of Leopold's land ethic, a thing is right when it tends to preserve the integrity, stability, and beauty of the biotic community. It is wrong when it tends otherwise. By treating this land as sacred, the community preserves the integrity and stability of not just of the forest, but of the entire community's spiritual and ecological well-being. The sacred grove reflects a relational ontology, emphasizing Haraway's making kin. For Haraway, making kin, Donna Haraway's theory for making kin means forming ethical, caring, and responsible relationships beyond blood across species, ecosystems, technologies, and communities. She writes in his Staying with the Tribal, Making Kin in the Kutlusin, my purpose is to make kin means something other or more than entities tied by ancestry or genealogy. Kin making is making persons, not necessarily as individuals or as humans. She proposes that make kin and not babies. Then comes the agricultural practices of the Santals and how they give land a living entity. They treat land as a living entity. The agricultural practices of the Santals also reflect their dynamic relationship with the land. Agricultural fields require ritual acknowledgement, and their sowing and harvesting seasons commence with festivals during which they offer sacrifices to the sacred grove. In the month of Ashar, they sacrifice sowing fowls to the sacred grove in the name of sowing and scattering of the seeds. For green crops, they offer green fowls to the village bongas in the month of Sawan after the sowing season. Then Shoria is one of their great festival which takes place in the month of Poush after the paddy has been reaped and threshed. In the month of Falgun, they celebrate Baha, the flower festival. It is celebrated to acknowledge the turn of the year when the shal tree blossoms and Mohua gives flowers. It is one of their righteous festivals. These rituals prevent overexploitation of natural resources, acknowledges the land's gifts, and cultivate a shared responsibility to preserve the ecological integrity of their environment. This worldview of the Santals emphasizes Leopold's idea of man capable of moral judgment should act responsibly and include the land as a living entity in their everyday lives. While Leopold's land ethic expands the moral community to include the non-human objects, Santali cosmology operates from a fundamentally different ontological premise. Land is not incorporated into an already human-centered ethical framework. It is constitutive of community itself. Santali land ethic does not arise from the extending rights to outward, but from acknowledging pre-existing relational obligations embedded in cosmology, ritualistic practices, and storytelling traditions. According to famous post-humanist Francesca Ferrando, post-humanism stresses the urgency for humans to become aware of pertaining to an ecosystem which, when damaged negatively, affects the human condition as well. In such a framework, the human is not approached as an autonomous agent, but is located within an extensive system of relations. So to conclude, I would say that Santali worldview acknowledges land is sacred, not a commodity. Animals are active participants in their life and not tools to be used at their convenience. Forests are dwelling places of spirits and should be revered. They take only the Santals take only what is necessary from the forest. They do not exploit the forest. Gratitude precedes consumption. Sowing and harvesting are all accompanied by rituals and festivals acknowledging the spirits and bongas. Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for making, again, some very pertinent points. But again, the question is in which way you are to bridge between the Western ideas, the Western canon of philosophical thought, critical thought, and the very indigenous worldview that you have mentioned towards the very fag end of your presentation, in the very conclusion of your presentation. So in which way you are to bridge between the Western canon of thought, philosophical thought, critical thought, and the indigenous worldview, which has a very deep association with land. Okay, so I think that audience must be able to come back with you in a dialogue at the very end of the session regarding these issues. Thank you. Thank you for this presentation, and with this I'd like to move on to the next presentation, which will be given by Subhashish Giri. Subhashish Giri, please introduce yourself and straight away move on to your presentation.
Good afternoon, everyone. I am Subhashish Giri, an independent research scholar. Today I am going to present my paper on Beyond Human Intelligence, a post-human study of cognitive capitalism and commodified intelligence in Ray Rayner's The Mountain in the Sea. So first we have to understand what is cognitive capitalism is. Cognitive capitalism means a capitalism which suggests that the labor is no longer merely physical, it is cognitive or immaterial. So in the novel we can see that Ray Naylor presents a speculative world where non-human intelligence, specifically octopus's consciousness, becomes the newest frontier of capitalist extraction. It is set in a near future Vietnam. The novel explores corporate monopolizations of marine territories, AI surveillance, and the commodification of cognition itself. So first, I would like to tell about the author, Ray Naylor. Ray Naylor is a Hugo and Lucas Award Prize winner author of contemporary American and Canadian literature. His works engages with the ecology, questions of consciousness and non-human intelligence. And in this novel, the story focuses on discovery of a society of intelligence, octopuses, in the island of Condau archipelago. For the textual analysis of the text, I would like to use the post-human and cognitive capitalism as a theoretical framework. So first, I would like to tell about the posthumanism. Key thinkers like Rossi Braidotti tells us that posthuman subject is not an isolated individual, but a relational subject situated in a shared and material world with other species, technologies, and the environment. Then Donna Haraway says that the liberal and autonomous and rational human subject, humans are always already integrated with technological and biological non-human others. Then N. Catherine Hales, in her book, How We Became Posthuman, argues that the humans or machine boundaries is erased, proposing a distributed cognitive assemblage where cognition is shared between human, animal, and machine. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much. So, again, a philosophical revisit to some very loaded ideas. I think we would be able to reflect on the issues that you have raised in the session, where we'll be inviting queries and questions, observations later on after the end of all the presentations. Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. And with this note, I would like to call Suraj Jana. Suraj Jana is going to be the next presenter. Please briefly introduce yourself and move on to your presentation. I think a lot of Rossi Braidotti. Almost in all the papers we have Rossi Braidotti. A lot of Rossi Braidotti. So the holy ghost of Rossi Braidotti must be here with us. Okay, a new paper. Thank you. Thank you.
Good afternoon, respected chairperson, esteemed teachers, research scholars, and dear students. I am Suraj Jana, PG student, Department of English, Midnapore City College. It is a privilege to present my paper titled Embodied Ruins and Virtual Afterlives, Posthuman Disembodiment and Technological Melancholia in the Electric State by Simon Stanelak. Before I begin, I would like to briefly acknowledge Mr. Abhishek Chakravarti, Assistant Professor, Department of English, Midnapore City College, for his guidance and valuable suggestion in shaping this paper. Today, I would like to reflect on a question that feels increasingly relevant in our own technological age. Does technological advancement necessarily mean human evolution, or can it signal a quiet erosion of human presence? The Electric State is set in an alternate 1997 America after a prolonged human-robot war. The war is over, but what remains is scarred landscape filled with rusting drones, abandoned highways, collapsed shopping malls, and giant mechanical debris. This ruined geography is not merely background scenery. It functions as a metaphor for a civilization that had survived physically but lost something essential. At the center of the narrative is Michelle, a teenage girl who travels across this devastated America with a small robot companion named Skip to find her missing brother. Her journey is physical, slow, and uncertain. As she moves forward, we repeatedly encounters a disturbing image. Human beings sitting motionless, wearing neurocasting helmets, completely absorbed in virtual environments. Their bodies remain alive, but their consciousness is elsewhere. The neurocaster allows users to project their mind into immersive simulations. On the surface, this seems revolutionary. This suggests transcendence, freedom from bodily limitations, a post-human future. But Stanelak shows us something very different. Instead of empowerment, neurocasting produces withdrawal. Instead of evolution, it produces decline. People do not become stronger, they become passive. They do not destroy it violently, they disappear slowly. through disengagement. To understand this, I turn to Jean Baudrillard and his theory of simulation. In Simulacra and Simulation, Baudrillard writes, the simulation is never that which conceals the truth. It is the truth which conceals that there is none. What he suggests is that in hyperreality, simulations replaces the real. Presentation becomes more powerful than reality itself. In the electric state, virtual immersion becomes preferable to physical existence. The simulated world is chosen over the material one. Highways crumbled, buildings collapse, but consciousness withdraws into digital comfort. The body becomes an empty cell. Presence becomes uncertain. Baudrillard also argues that simulation collapses the boundary between the real and the imaginary. In the novel, we see this collapse visually. A human body may sit in a chair, but the subject is absent. Reality continues without participation. We often imagine humans controlling technology. Here, machines appear more active than humans. Robots wander, drones hover, technology proceeds, humans retreat. Briefly, we may consider Donna Haraway and her cyborg theory. Haraway describes the cyborg as a hybrid of machines and organism, suggesting possibility of transformation. But in Stalin's world, hybridization does not produce liberation. There is no triumphant cyborg. Instead of evolving into superior beings, humans demonize. Their bodies weaken, their relationships fragment, their agency declines. The cyber condition is here not expansion, it is confinement. Mitchell's journey stands in contrast to this decline. She works, she feels hunger, she experiences fear and grief. Her body registers reality. In a society absorbed by simulation, her embodiment becomes resistance. And here lies the central message of the novel. Technological advancement without ethical responsibility does not guarantee progress. It can produce withdrawal. It can encourage humanity to abandon shared reality. The ruins across America symbolize more than the aftermath of war. They symbolize neglected presence. As people choose simulation over engagement, the world decays. In conclusion, the electric state reconfigures posthumanism not as triumph, but as warning. Through Baudrillard's theory of simulation, we see how technological immersion replaces reality rather than enriching it. And so we are left with an unsettling question. If we surrender embodiment for convenience, if we mistake immersion for improvement, what remains of being humans? Stanislavski suggests that progress without presence is not transformation, it is disappearance. Thank you.
Thank you for raising the flag of emotion. Thank you, because we are thinking a lot with brain, and we are not thinking with our heart. Thank you for raising some very emotional questions. And I think Bruno Latour's idea of technocentrism too, we are gradually proceeding towards, as he has mentioned, a kind of techno-feudalism. This is very interesting, an idea, techno-feudalism. So is it a kind of techno-feudalism where right now we are in? This is definitely going to be a very important question, pertinent question for this hour. Now, thank you for raising these pertinent questions with all emotion, with all warmth. That academia is badly needed. And with this word, I'd like to call Oishi Samonto. Yes. The next presenter will be Oishi Samonto. Please briefly introduce yourself and straight away move on to your presentation. Oishi has been one of the very proactive students of this department.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Oishi Samonto. I am currently pursuing my master's degree in English honors, English from Midnapore City College. Now, I will start my presentation Today I will be presenting my paper titled Transgender Bodies as Cyborg Subjects, reading Gretchen Felker-Martin's Manhunt through Donna Haraway's A Cyborg Manifesto. This presentation explores how transgender embodiment can be understood through posthuman theories, particularly Haraway's concept of the cyborg. I'll explain how identity, technology, and gender intersect within Felker-Martin's dystopian novel Manhunt. This paper investigates transgender embodiments using posthumanist theories. I analyze how Manhunt reflects Donna Haraway's cyborg physiology, which challenges traditional ideas and identities rooted in biology. The study argues that gender identity cannot be understood as a fixed or natural. Instead, it emerges through technological, social, and cultural interactions. Thus, the identity moves beyond biological essentialism. The main objectives of this research are fourfold. First, to understand Donna Haraway's concept of the cyborg. Second, to analyze transgender bodies as hybrid identities rather than fixed categories. Third, to study dystopian embodiment in Manhunt. And finally, to conclude posthumanism with contemporary gender theory in order to rethink subjectivity and identity. A cyborg. A cyborg, according to Haraway, is a hybrid being composed of organism and machine. It challenges rigid identity categories such as male-female or human-machine. The cyborg symbolizes theoretical embodiment and suggests that humans are already interconnected with technology in everyday life. Thus, identity becomes fluid rather than essential. Now we move on to the key ideas of Cyborg Manifesto. Haraway possesses several important ideas. First, the fusion of human and machine disrupts traditional humanist definition. Second, gender is socially constructed rather than biologically determined. Third, she promotes political coalitions based on shared goals rather than pure fixed identities. This theory opens new ways of understanding marginalized identities, including transgender experiences. Posthumanism questions the idea of stable and unified human subjects. Instead, it emphasizes hybridity, fluidity, and transformation. Technology plays a key role in reshaping embodiment and subjectivity, showing that identity evolves through interaction and scientific social systems. This framework helps reinterpret gender beyond traditional binaries. About Manhunt. Manhunt is a dystopian horror novel by Gretchen Felker-Martin. The story takes place in a post-apocalyptic world where a plague transforms society along gender lines. The narrative focuses on social bodily transformation and struggles of transgender characters navigating violence and instability. The novel is ideal literary space to explore post-human embodiment. In Manhunt, hormonal technology becomes essential for survival. Bodies are constantly negotiated and reconstructed through medical interventions. The extreme violence of dystopian setting exposes how fragile and socially constructed gender norms truly are. The novel demonstrates that gender identity is dynamic rather than fixed. Transgender bodies function as cyborg subjects because transition often involves medical technologies such as hormones and surgeries. Identity through technological intervention and adaptation. Identity emerges through technological intervention and adaptation. The process blurs the distinction between natural and artificial, embodying Haraway's cyborg theory in a lived experience. Both Haraway's theory and Manhunt challenges binary thinking. The boundaries between male and female become unstable. Similarly, the distinction between human and machine is blurred. Even the separation between man and the separation between nature and culture is questioned. The destabilization allows new understanding of ideas and embodiment. The novel can be read as a literary presentation of Haraway's theory. Transgender bodies in Manhunt represent post-human subjectivity, where identity is shaped through technology and adaptation. Survival depends on technological embodiment, reinforcing the cyborg as the model of contemporary existence. To conclude, cyborg theories helps redefine identity beyond biological limits. Transgender embodiment challenges traditional humanist assumptions about the body and subjectivity. Through Manhunt, we see a powerful literary example of the post-human existence, where hybridity and transformations become central to the understanding of ideas. Thank you, sir. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Thank you so much for presenting this paper, and that has unfolded several ideas related to cyborg and transgender bodies. And I think that whenever Professor Chatterjee is sitting out there, it's a kind of audacity on my part it would be to comment anything over transgender bodies and cyborg identities and all these things. So I think I should better leave it to Professor Chatterjee to comment over this paper, and if you please after the end of the session. Thank you so much. And with this, I'd like to move on to the next presenter, next set of presenters, Nisha Pal, Megha Goswami, and Sweetie Chand. So a set of paper presenters, welcome. I think this is your first presentation. Okay. Fine. Hail to the Blither spirit, to the world of research and all these things. Best wishes. Just introduce yourself.
Good afternoon, respected chairperson, honorable teachers, and my dear friends. First of all, we would like to express our gratitude to our respected teachers for giving us this wonderful opportunity to present our paper today. We are the students of UG 5th semester, Department of English of Midnapore City College. Today, we are presenting our paper titled Nevermore Human, Non-Human Agency and the Collapse of Humanist Subjectivity in the Raven. The Raven, written by Edgar Allan Poe in 1845. It is one of the most celebrated poems in American literature. Traditionally, it has been read as a Gothic poem that dealing with grief, melancholy, and psychological disturbance. Critics often interpret the raven as a symbol of death or as a projection of the speaker's inner sorrow. However, our paper moves beyond this traditional, conventional approach. Instead of treating the raven as just a symbol, we examine it as an active non-human presence that influences meaning, language, and emotional intensity within the poem. In other words, we argue that the raven is not passive, it has agency. Through the lens of post-humanism, we reconsider how the poem challenged the idea of human superiority and centrality. To understand this framework more clearly, I now invite my co-presenter to explain the theoretical background.
Thank you. So our analysis is grounded in post-human theory. Basically, the post-humanism challenges anthropocentrism. Anthropocentrism believes that humans are the center of all meaning and authority. It also questions the idea that the humans are freely autonomous and rational and also sovereign beings. Some great scholars such as Donna Haraway, N. Catherine Hales and Rossi Bradotti argues that subjectivity is not isolated within the human mind. Instead, it formed through various networks that includes animals, objects, environments and technological systems. From this perspective, non-human entities possess agency. It means that they actively shape experience and interpretations. Applying this framework to the Raven, we shift our focuses from symbolism to structural analysis. It shows that the Raven is a non-human agent shaping the narrator's subjectivity through interactions. Now I invited our next speaker to discuss our textual analysis. Thank you.
Thank you. We know that traditionally the raven is viewed as a symbol of death or grief. However, in our reading, the raven functions as more than a symbol. It actively shapes the poem's narrative structure. First of all, it interrupts the speaker's solitude. Secondly, it occupies the physical and symbolic space by perching upon the bust of Pallas Athena. And last but not the least, it occupies and controls the rhythm of the poem through the repeated utterance, nevermore. Each time the speaker asks a metaphysical question about Lenore, heaven, or relief from sorrow, the bird responds with the same word, nevermore. This repetition increases the speaker's emotional pain. While the speaker becomes more desperate, the raven remains calm and unchanged. In this way, the bird controls the emotional movement of the poem. Here, meaning is created not only by the human speaker, but also through his interaction with the non-human agency, the raven. Another important aspect or idea of our poem is the collapse of human control. The raven sits upon the bust of Pallas Athena, the goddess of wisdom. Symbolically, rationality is being overshadowed here. At the beginning, the speaker appears calm and logical, but gradually it loses its emotional balance. His rational authority collapses. The raven's repeated speech resembles mechanical or automated discourse. The bird does not explain anything. It does not show sympathy, yet its simple repetition has powerful effects. By the end, the human subject is trapped beneath the raven's shadow. Overall, our study shows that human authority has weakened and the non-human presence has become dominant. Now I invite my first speaker to conclude our study. Thank you.
Thank you. To conclude, The Raven is not only a Gothic poem about grief, it also questions the power and stability of human mind. By giving the raven a strong and active presence, the poem shows that humans are not always superior or central. In this way, the poem connects with post-human ideas and invites us to rethink the relationship between humans and non-human forces. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I must congratulate all of you for this wonderful presentation and keeping the spirit of this kind of joint presentation. Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. I think you must have read another very interesting poem by Ted Hughes, which is entitled as Crow. And in internet, if you just simply Google, you definitely will find a lot of papers where you will see a kind of parallelism between Poe's texts and Ted Hughes' texts. So I think that would be brilliant, an avenue to begin your research in the days to come. Thank you. Thank you so much for this wonderful presentation. And with this, I declare this session open for debate discussions, and I invite and welcome queries. So just feel free to come up with your observations, queries, questions, if you have any. No question. Okay, right.
I don't remember the names, but I remember the papers. One was the paper on the Dalit, I think it was your paper, yes. Dalit body, yeah. So while listening to your presentation, it just occurred to me, the Dalit, you talked about the scavenger, yes. Have you ever thought about, or has anybody ever thought about, since I'm not a Dalit studies scholar, the Dalits deal with impurity. That's why they are considered as impure bodies or whatever. The doctors also deal with impurities, no? So, so why then is this stigma exclusively attached to the doctors, to the Dalit body and not to the doctor's body? And how have you ever thought about that? Yes, yes.
The Indian epistemological system, from the previous, it has been stigmatized that Dalit.
All the presenters, all the presenters. I'd like to call all the presenters to address the queries, questions from the audience.
History of the Indian epistemological system, from the beginning of the tradition itself, there has been said that Dalit means impure because of their skin color or because of their cultural nuances, that they are impure in nature.
Yeah, that's precisely my question. Yeah.
Yes.
So do you think the focus should now shift from the Dalit body to the question of impurity, what we consider as impurity?
Yes, yes. Their socioeconomic background is telling that they are impure in nature. In fact, I have used the word necropolitics but necropolitics is all about the politics of the dead. And that is always related to the dead, means those who are impure or those who are marginalized, they are the impure in the society. Because they do not have, they have the urban stigma attached to it.
Okay. No, but I'm talking about the Dalit. Adivasi and Dalits are not the same.
These are not the same. But what I would like to mention is that every primitivist discourse is always pure. Any primitivist discourse is generally taken by the culture studies scholars as, a kind of purist idea. It's not so simple, right?
The elite culture has already rooted that with Dalit and Adivasi. It means it is actually in the title also I used a word keyword surveillance. That the surveillance is meant for the elite surveillance, how the elite people see the Dalits. That's my point of view.
But my question is, why is it that even though both of these parties,
because they were culturally stagnant, economically they were more about it.
I mean, these are not for you to answer really, but to think about. Let's put it that way. Yeah.
Okay, I will theory work on this, ma'am.
Yes, yes. And regarding your paper on Santhal, this one, you were talking about the Santhal life worlds, and then you had reference to Ferrando and Leopold and all those theorists. My question is, we do have Raghunath Murmu, no? Raghunath Murmu's conceptualization of Santhali, ecological ethics and all that. So why no reference to Raghunath Murmu? He's already conceptualizing the Santhali life world. So that's very incongruent to, with this kind of research, the Santhalis only become mere data. The thinking is done by the Western scholars. Yeah. So bring in Raghunath Murmu and read Raghunath Murmu. That was just a suggestion.
document this Santali oral, how do you document this Santali oral narratives? So did you go over to the villages and talk to the Santali men or women, and in what language did they speak to you? In Santali or in Bangla? Because the people at the back of the... Oh.
So to be honest, I've actually not done any kind of field study till now. I'm quite new to this, new to my research, but I have studied the textbooks of like Christian missionaries, those who have translated Santal folk narratives.
Good. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. But my suggestion is that go for the
Yes,
ethnographic
sir,
study.
definitely,
That
yeah.
would be much more better
Yes,
and
sir.
authentic.
In the course of my research, I will do that.
Any further question, comment or query? Yes.
Yes, so counterintuitively, I'm not going to comment on the paper on the transgender. That will be a different discussion altogether. No, I was going to ask a question about. I think I've taken a picture of the yeah. So this is about the sleeping river. Yeah. Yeah. Very simple question. The forest is my wife.
Yes. Yes.
Do you find any problem in that sentence?
Well, sir, it is exact quote from Isthiren Kire.
I know. Do you find a problem in thinking about the forest as somebody's wife? Is there a problem there or there is no problem?
The context in which Isthiren Kire refers this, I find there is no problem. No problem. Because in the novel, Vilai, the protagonist, he left his village and went to the forest. And he even refuses to marry a woman or a lady. Vilai's family constantly try to agree him to marry a girl, but Vilai loves nature. Vilai loves forest more than anyone, and as a man cares his wife, Vilai takes care of the forest in similar way. So I found in the context of the novel there is no wrong.
Love also must have its other subtexts and contexts. I mean, there could be ascetic love, there could be amorous love. So, and a love to nature, towards nature.
It's protective. It's protective. Vilai protects nature.
I think there is a very interesting debate between the eco-feminist kind of representation and eco-masculinist kind of representation. That I think we must. That is actually what I think Sarah has tried to mention. This is eco-masculinist discourse. That is what actually is, I mean, he's making this point very clear.
It's a very problematic sentence. It's a deeply problematic sentence because the moment you're calling the forest your wife, what you're basically doing is you are superimposing a deeply patriarchal structure like marriage onto a relationship between a man and a non-human, right? So therefore, it is fantastically problematic because you are then superimposing a human structure which was created not to serve, by the way, the human being, but it is an androcentric structure created only to serve man, not the woman. So when you are calling the forest wife, you are feminizing nature. And when you're feminizing nature, you are then doing something that everybody has been doing since time immemorial, which is to regard nature as my property, the way in which man regards his wife as his property, right? So it may seem okay to you, but it is fantastically objectionable because of the reason that a deeply toxic structure like marriage is being imposed on a relationship that is apparently non-toxic. Have I been able to clarify? Thank you so much.
I'll think about it.
Please do, because it's an extremely troubling line. Thank you.
Okay. But the line is not mine. It is written by Strankira. Yes. Okay.
We are not coming to the responsibility question. Don't think about the responsibility.
Okay.
It's the responsibility of the researchers. It's the responsibility of the researchers to think and rethink and make a kind of very honest kind of quest regarding all these issues, queries, questions. So
Okay. Thank you.
You have to also check the claims made by critics and scholars. That's also another kind of research.
Okay. Thank you.
So any more question to all the presenters? Any questions? Any more question, query, observation? If not, that I have a very general kind of a question to all the presenters. It's a very general kind of question. What I have got. There is a kind of amalgam between the post theories and the trans theories. In all the paper presentations, there is a kind of amalgam between post theories and trans theories. If you think, if you think even of transhumanism and posthumanism, so trans theories ultimately it speaks of a kind of subjectless ontology. But post theories redefine subjectivity. So it actually intrinsically creates a deeper conflict, the post theories and the trans theories. But I have found that there is a very intriguing as well, amalgam between some strands of post theories and some strands of trans theories. Transhumanism and posthumanism, these are not altogether, these are not same, altogether rather different. So, where, as I've already mentioned, the trans theories speak of subjectless ontology, whereas post theories all the time tend to redefine subjectivity. So there is actually kind of intrinsic conflict between the trans theories and the post theories. So what do you think about it? It's a very general kind of question to all the paper presenters.
Trans theory always speaks of the fluidity of identity. And post theory is all about rigidity. The subjectivity you are speaking about is all about rigid conditions. Trans means the word trans is always coming as a fluid in nature.
It's having different connotations in different contexts. That's not, in a way we cannot also fix a particular kind of meaning to this very word even. That is actually against the spirit of this seminar. To make a fixed meaning of a certain thing, which in itself is a kind of against the spirit of this very seminar. Okay, so this is a very general observation that, and a very general kind of question that has come to my mind. Okay, fine. I think we all must think together, read together, learn together, and come back together. Thank you. With this note of co-praxis, with this note of co-thinking, I think I must make an end of this session, this wonderful session, this wonderfully engaging, enlightening session. Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Thank you everyone for this illuminating and enlightening session. Now we will move towards the valedictory session as we have reached to the end of our 2-day international seminar. With that, I would like to call Dr. Sharmila Roy, Organizing Secretary of the seminar, Assistant Professor of Department of English, Midnapore City College, to convey the vote of thanks.
Respected dignitaries, distinguished speakers, honored guests, colleagues, research scholars, my lovable students, and dear participants. It is my great honor and privilege as the organizing secretary to propose the vote of thanks at the valedictory session of the 2-day international seminar on Unmasking the Human, the Posthuman Turn in Contemporary Culture. At the outset, I express my heartfelt gratitude to our Chief Patron and Founder Director, Dr. Pradeep Ghosh, whose vision and constant encouragement made this academic initiative possible. I sincerely thank our respected Principal Sir, Dr. Sudipta Chakraborty, and Vice Principal, Dr. Kuntal Ghosh, for this unwavering support, guidance, and inspiration throughout the organization of this seminar. I extend my deepest appreciation to our convener, Dr. Rajkumar Bera, and our joint convener, Dr. Orpita Raj and Mr. Abhishek Chakraborty, for their leadership, cooperation, and tireless efforts in ensuring the smooth planning and execution of this program. I would also like to offer special thanks to Mr. Vishwadev Rajbanshi, Joint Organizing Secretary, for his constant support, coordination, and dedication in managing various aspects of this seminar. I profoundly grateful to our eminent key speakers, resource persons, and session chairs, Professor Dr. Niladri Ranjan Chatterjee, Head Department of English, University of Kalyani, Professor Dr. Urmishri Bedmata, Department English, Ravenshaw University, Dr. Professor John Charles Royan, the Professor Senior Researchers Fellow at Nulungu Institute, University, Australia, Dr. Apurva Saha, Head Department of English, University of Bankura, Professor Dr. Shubhadeep Paul, Department of English, Bankura, and Dr. Sayan Sarkar, Professor, Department of English, Midnapore College, and also Dr. Soumodip Chakraborty, Assistant Professor of Raja Narendralal College, Autonomous. I would like to offer special thanks to our students, anchors, Kavita and Koel, whose confidence and graceful anchoring added warm continuity to the proceeding and helped the session flow smoothly. Thank you. My sincere thanks go to all delegates, scholars, and students whose enthusiastic participation and thoughtful engagement contribute to the vibrant academic atmosphere we experienced over these 2 days. I express my heartfelt gratitude to Mr. Abhishek Das, Assistant Registrar, for this for his continuous support, and also our multitasker Suman, who has that contributed, that is spontaneously supporting us simultaneously by doing the different tasks. I really appreciate him. My sincere thanks goes to all delegates, scholars, students whose enthusiastic participation and thoughtful engagement contributed to the vibrant academic atmosphere we experienced over these 2 days. I would also like to acknowledge the delicate efforts of the organizing committee members, all the office staffs, technical teams, registration desk, volunteers, and all the supporting staffs of Humanities for working tirelessly behind the scene to make this event successful. Finally, I thank Midnapore College for providing us with the platform and resource to host this meaningful scholarly exchange. As we bring this enriching seminar to a close, let us carry forward the spirit, inquiry, and collaboration that this animated these 2 days. May the conversation begin here continue to resonate in our classrooms, research, and collective imaginations, reminding us that knowledge grows through dialogue and sheer commitment. With deep gratitude to each one of you, I conclude with the hope that this gathering will remain not merely an event we attended, but an experience that inspires us to rethink, reconnect, and reimagine the human in a rapid change world. Thank you, and wishing everyone a safe journey ahead. Thank you. Thank you so much.
সাবধান